toggles it on and off.
Okay.
This light will come on. Um, Hello, good afternoon, folks. Welcome to another edition of CalRecycle's workshop series on the recycling and disposal reporting system. My name is Steve Sander. I'm with the CalRecycle Knowledge Integration Section Policy Development Analysis Office. And I'll be kind of a one-man show today based out of the Sacramento office. So, happy to be with you all down here in Southern California to, take our time and help folks navigate through the new system. So just a few housekeeping things before we get into the actual workshop presentation. Please place your cell phones on the silent or vibrate mode if you haven't done so. Thank you. Restrooms are located down the hallway across the auditorium entrance. And if an evacuation is called, please exit the building through the doors at the back of the auditorium. If a shelter in place is necessary, such as in the event of an earthquake, please drop, cover your head, and hold on to your chair. So just a little bit more in the introduction here. This is a continuing, as I mentioned, continuing workshop series. We've had, I think this may be the 10th or 11th one we've done this year, explaining basically from the ground up what the requirements are for the various solid waste and recycling facilities that we'll need to report. So earlier in past workshops, we've covered topics such as, what are the de minimis tonnage thresholds above which, my business facility or operation is, beyond which the operation would be required to register in our DRS. We've also kind of discussed in some webinar series and past workshops how to actually interface with the system in terms of creating a registration profile. That was actually due at the end of May of this year. So, we've had workshops about how to actually get into the system, create a web pass, navigate in RDRS, create an organization/site for your business facility or operation, and then add one or more reporting entity activities on that site. Basically, setting up the system so that it can be navigated by the other various solid waste and recycling entities when it comes time to do the actual reporting. So I just wanted to kind of caveat that, begin with sort of that to keep in mind, because we are going to approach this with some baseline level of understanding. We're kind of assuming for the purposes of this workshop that you already have established what your reporting obligations would be, and you've created an organization / site in the RDRS system that basically describes the extent of your reportable activities taking place. And so, we're going to be taking one step further beyond that and actually talk about how to fill out a report. So for the bulk of today's workshop, I'm more or less going to be sort of narrating what I'm doing on the screen, just basically to give a tutorial or walkthrough and then answer any questions that you might have. So just, and another thing I want to try to keep in mind is, there may be a little bit of confusion about the extent to which, reporting is required, what are the various data points that need to be put into the system. I'm confident that when at the conclusion of today's workshop, you'll have a better understanding, and you'll find that actually it's quite manageable to fill out, these data. What's being called for is not necessarily every, it's not every single weight ticket. It's an aggregate quarterly tonnage, sent to each other facility or operation or to end users. So we'll talk about how to do that and how to successfully fill out a report in fulfillment of the new requirements that require the solid waste and recycling businesses, facilities, and operations, again, to report quarterly to the department. So I guess last bit of background before I jump off here, just so we're all kind of aware, the CalRecycle has had a disposal reporting system, since at least 1990, and that's where solid waste facilities, transfer stations, permitted transfer stations and MRFs, and disposal facilities have needed to do some reporting and then pass that information along to the county or regional agency in which that facility is located. The county or regional agency aggregates the data and sends that to CalRecycle on a quarterly basis. That's basically the system that we're transitioning away from. So quarter two of reporting year 2019 will be the last quarter that folks use that old disposal reporting system. And then as of quarter three, 2019, which is the period July, August, September, you'll compile and submit those reports, depending on what entity you are, in either October, November, or December timeframe. So I'll get a little bit more into that in the presentation itself. I just kind of wanted to give a little bit of intro to make sure we're all kind of on the same page here with respect to what's going to be going on today. So I'm just going to be going through for basically the duration until approximately 4:30. I want to try to get out a little bit early. We'll take a brief 10 or 15-minute break about halfway through. Basically, we'll be going through each reporting entity type sequentially for however long it takes for the questions to be answered and for me to submit the report here in front of you all today. So that's essentially where we're coming from. And in terms of question and answer, audience participation, things like that, we do have for the online participants, email that you can send your questions to. It's going to be rdrs@calrecycle.ca.gov. Again, that's rdrs@calrecycle.ca.gov. There will also be some designated points in the presentation where we'll kind of open it up for audience questions and that sort of thing. We don't have the ability to do roving microphones, unfortunately, for this presentation workshop, but we're going to invite you to come up here to the dais and we can have a conversation at that point. But essentially, that's how the meeting will take place for this afternoon. We're also going to be more or less focusing on the questions having to do with the actual reporting system itself, in terms of like, what did I just do in the system? What are the various form fields and things that go into them, and so forth, rather than kind of more theoretical or regulations-based questions. If there's time, I may humor some of that, but really we want to try to focus on the actual reporting system itself, rather than kind of get into something more abstract about the regulations themselves. Well, we think those conversations are really good, and we want to continue to have them. In this forum in particular, we just want to focus on what we're doing here in the reporting system. So if that makes sense, I'll kind of jump off here. What you'll want to begin, this is all going to be sort of from the perspective of a facility or operation that needs to interact or interface with our DRS. So basically we'll start from square one and kind of work our way through here. So you notice that I've had the CalRecycle homepage pulled up. This is, the place that you'll navigate to begin, reporting in RDRS. So you'll want to, there's two ways to get to the reporting system. You can either, in the search box, type RDRS and then click the magnifying glass or hit enter. Or for now, at least, there's an in focus section here, and the second link is for new recycling and disposal reporting system. And you can either click on that title or click the Learn More button, and it'll take you to our RDRS webpage. So, sorry for going slow here, but I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page. So go ahead and click that button. That will take you to the recycling and disposal reporting system webpage, as I said. So on this page, you can basically view all of the implementation work that we've been conducting over the past year or so. Of course, the regulations were approved by the Office of Administrative Law on March 5th of this year and entered into immediate regulatory effect. We had a year or so of formal rulemaking, and then prior to that, about 2 years of informal rulemaking. If you scroll down here, you can see that there's kind of a breakdown by section, kind of like a Wikipedia article. It'll take you to various places on the website. You can also, this is basically going to be the main login button in perpetuity. So if you're wondering about how to actually get into the system, you'll want to click on that right there where it says log into RDRS. And that will take you, to the actual reporting system itself. But I just wanted to highlight some other good resources here. If you click on training resources, we have a new training page that it takes you to, just because there were so many resources. We didn't want to fill up so much content on this particular page. But just to give you sort of a preview of what that looks like, of course, you can see we've released a sneak peek video of the RDRS reporting system. I'm doing, similar stuff to what we're doing today, just in a little bit more condensed format. So you can take a look at that at your leisure. Of course, today's training is being webcast to YouTube. It will be immediately available after the presentation. So you can, look at various sections at your leisure when you get back to your desk if there's something that didn't quite stick for you. We had a workshop on September 9th in the Cal EPA building in Sacramento. That was very much the same as this training that you can also view. And then if you take a look, we also have we're beginning to put in some entity-specific training videos that are quite comprehensive, and I highly recommend that if you're a contract hauler reporting entity or a food waste self-hauler reporting entity, you take a look at that. That will give you, a really good overview of, what all is required and how to submit your report. Some other resources here. As you can see, we've been quite busy in terms of outreach to the regulated community and to stakeholders. So on May 21st, June 19th and July 8th, we conducted some reporting requirements trainings. As I said, basically, what kind of information will need to be input into the system. So depending on what kind of reporting entity you came here to see, again, there's some entity-specific YouTube videos and trainings that you can take a look at, and some additional resources. For instance, this spreadsheet will tell you exactly, for each reporting entity type, what data points, would need to be reported upon. So, many ways to access this info, and we're doing everything we can to try to make this as easy as possible for folks to interface with the system. So, I guess what we would ask is that, you just do your diligence in following along the recorded trainings and making every effort to engage, with us and to properly submit your reports before the due date. All right. And of course, registration, as I talked about, determining whether or not I need to register in the system, what are my tonnage thresholds, how do I establish an entity in the system. There's additional trainings that you can find on there. But we'll go back to the main RDRS web page and then log into RDRS and actually go about this. All right, so as I mentioned prior, you'll want to click on that login to RDRS button. That will take you into the actual data system itself. So this is what it's going to look like, of course, minus the banners and whatnot, the user testing. This is basically kind of like a behind the scenes look because as of right now, if you actually go into the system and try to follow along with what I do, the quarterly reports section hasn't opened up for the respective reporting entities, right? Because as I mentioned, October, November, and December timeframe is when the reporting system will actually open up. But this will give you sort of a preview of how to do it. So as of October 1st, if you're a contract hauler, that would be the when the quarterly reports module will be made available to the public. So that's going to basically be for all intents and purposes, the debut date of RDRS system. This is, again, to give folks a preview, a behind-the-scenes look at sort of what all is going to be required. So begin by entering the web pass or the email that you use to create your web pass. So, of course, if you don't have a web pass, again, refer back to the older trainings. You'll need to create a CalRecycle web pass to access this and all the other CalRecycle data systems. And you do that through through a different web page. But the process is not very difficult. But assuming you have already gotten into RDRS and created your organization/site, which we've done here for this workshop purposes. So I'm going to enter the email web pass associated used with the registration, confirm that the password protection phrase matches what you used when you registered. I noticed that it's the same, so I can feel confident about entering my password into this data system. Oops. And all right, and then type your password in correctly, and you'll be greeted with the organization/site switch organization/site default view. And this is where you can view basically at a glance all of the organizations/sites that you have registered. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Just hang on 1 second, and I'll take it in just a second. So yeah, you can see here at a glance all of the organizations/sites that you have created, and then from there, select the appropriate reporting entity. And we're going to begin with food waste self-hauler. So yeah, go on ahead with your question. The question was, can there be, multiple users for one organization slash site? And the answer is yes. And the procedure of doing that has been covered in those April workshops. So there's a module on YouTube where we discuss how to add additional web pass emails to the organization slash site, so multiple people, in your organization can input the data as needed or submit the data for somebody else. So there are definitely ways to do that. Yes, there are. So yeah, with that in mind, what we can do is, assuming I'm going to be doing the reporting, I'll click the button next to this Dorian Gray food hauling operation. And let's say I want to submit a quarterly report as a food waste self-hauler. So click that button on that line item. It'll take you to the organization slash site summary. So this is the information that you provided to the department in that April-May timeframe when you hopefully when you registered your business facility or operation. So this gives an overview of what's taking place here. As you can see, is the organization slash site has one reporting entity on it, the food waste self-hauler, which we would assume that's they're going to be the case because they're just, if that's only one operation, that would be the one reporting entity. So what's different is that my version has this quarterly reports button on the left-hand navigation pane. But if you were to log into RDRS today, you would not see that. So that's essentially, what the distinction is. But when it comes time for the reporting to open up, rest assured that button will be available. So you'll want to click that button, quarterly reports. That will basically begin the process of having you fill out a quarterly report for this business facility or operation. So what you'll want to do is on this table, you can see any past reports that you've submitted. You will not have anything in your table because this will be the first reporting period. But just going forward, that will show any previous reports or reports that you have open or reports that have been submitted or superseded by revisions or that sort of thing. Basically, everything that you enter and then submit is logged in that table. So to begin creating a new quarterly report, for this food waste hauler, you'll want to click that Add Report button at the top left-hand side of the table. Now you're going to want to select the reporting entity for which you're reporting for, and then the quarter. So since we already did a quarter 3 for these, just for this purposes, we'll select quarter 4. Of course, but to start off with, it would be quarter 3, 2019. And then you would select, you're required to report this quarter unless you had an applicable exemption, such as did not meet the quarterly de minimis tonnage threshold. And then once you click Save, that will load the quarterly report for this reporting entity. So this is the quarterly report. I'm going to make this a lot bigger so everyone can see and follow along with me. Basically, this is true for all quarterly reports that are entered in RDRS. There are a series of tabs, and that's basically the organization, the way it's structured. So beginning with the instructions tab, that's what you land on when you first open up the quarterly report. That basically, is kind of the landing page, for lack of a better word, to kind of get you started with the reporting in the system. So the process is to basically fill out each tab in sequence and then sequentially move to the right one by one until you've filled out all of the tabs. You're not going to want to skip around and jump from one tab to another. To the extent possible, you'll want to fill it out in order. And that's because some of the later tabs take data from some of the earlier tabs. So if you make modifications to some of the earlier tabs, it's going to throw off some of the numbers, and you may need to shift them around again. So basically, you'll want to establish, the data and kind of work your way up until the report is completed. But starting with the instructions tab, you'll want to first begin by reading in the instructions, and the instructions dictate that you're going to want to review your contact information and update it as if necessary. So take a look at your contact information in the organization/site information box, and you can view, some of your some of the information that you provided when you registered. And if any of that requires updating, you can click the Update Your Contact Information link, and that will bring you to a page where you can take care of that. And then step 2, as I just said, step through each tab in sequence and enter your information, and then submit the report on the Review and Submit tab. Now, the reason why it shows food waste self-hauler is, because it has the least requirements. This is kind of just to give an overview. At the same time, there's the fewest tabs, is what I'm trying to say. So this kind of gives kind of an outline of how to do all of the future or the other entity reporting. This kind of gives a good way to get your feet wet in terms of the reporting system. So really all there is to do is this outflows tab, if you really think about it. That's basically the only tab in which you'll enter data as a food waste self-hauler. So just to kind of provide a little bit of a brief background, food waste self-haulers were kind of included in a subsequent statute to AB 901. It's AB 1103. And basically it requires businesses that self-haul 13 cubic yards or 6,500 pounds or more of their own food waste to a facility or operation not owned or operated by them. They would need to register and report quarterly to the department for the reportable material they handle, in this case, food waste. That's essentially why we are explaining this, is because the legislature requires that food waste self-haulers report to the department. So this is the mechanism by which that is taking place to fulfill the legislative mandate. All right, so with that in mind, let's take a look at the outflows tab. So click the outflows button, and that will take you to the outflows page. And so, you can scroll down here, and basically there's this box here, and that's what you need to do to get started with this. As you can see, there's a question to ask you about methodology for how you determine the tons that you're about to report, and then the types of outflows that you're going to send out. So this essentially asks, what kinds of facilities did you take your food waste to? Was it a composting facility? Was it a disposal facility? Was it an end user? So you would click Edit to get started, and you would answer the applicable methodology questions. In this case, we can say that we rely on the receiving facility to provide outflow amounts based on the facility's measurement of tons using the following methods. And then there are some methods that they that are provided. In this case, we'll just check the method used by receiving facility not known. And then now, so that answers the methodology question, and you can check all that apply here in this box if there's more than one methodology that you utilize to determine tons sent by you. So if you're a food waste self-hauler and let's say you don't want to scale it, or that's not how you do your business, you rely on the receiving facility to scale the material that they're receiving, and then they provide you with the weight. That's an acceptable method, and you just need to tell us that that's what occurred as opposed to you measuring it yourself. And that if you did, you would say track outflow based on my own measurements, as you can see right there. So in the second question, outflow stream, you will select all the applicable outflows that are basically being self-hauled by you, the food waste self-hauler. So for this example, let's just check them all. Let's say we took material to a recycler or a composter. We took food waste to a solid waste disposal facility. We took solid or food waste to an end user. So click Save or press Enter when you're finished with that. That will bring you back to the main Outflows tab, and as you can see, your answers have been logged as you've answered them. And then scrolling down a bit, because we checked those 3 outflow streams, 3 tables have appeared: recycling/composting, solid waste for disposal, and use. So those correspond with the answers that we've provided. So for each of those outflows, you'll basically add information into those tables. So let's begin by adding an outflow to composting facility. Let's say we self-hauled the food waste to a composter called Ron Swanson University of Composting. So it will be quicker in the actual release version, but there are a couple tables here that are form fields that just need a minute to load because they're in the beta version and it's coming from a different server. So just bear with me if that happens. If you see the spinning things, just wait a moment, and it's just loading the records from the database. So in this field, you'll confirm that this is a recycling composting outflow that you're adding. You'll indicate whether the facility is located in California, out of state, out of country, or on a tribal lands. Then you'll enter the RDRS number or the facility name. So as I mentioned, Ron Swanson, we can basically begin typing Ron. The system will auto-complete to the extent possible, and you can click enter or click the respective record in the drop-down. That will you can confirm the contact information is correct and that's the actual facility that you're sending to, provided that of course is in the system. If it's not, if for some reason this facility that you're sending to is not listed, you can click that button and it'll basically ask you for the address, the address and contact information, kind of like how it's been provided there, and an email address of that facility so that we can get in touch with them and they can get a web pass and they can basically do what they need to do, if applicable, to get into the system. So we've confirmed that the contact information is correct, for that this is the facility that in fact we sent the material to. And so now we'll basically want to enter the material type, and since we're a food waste self-hauler, the material type is going to be food waste. And so you'll report at the level of handling or at the level of segregation or that at the time of the sale or transfer. So if you just sent it off as food waste and that's what you call it, you would report it as such. If there's a more specific way that you send off food waste, for instance, you break it down into these categories or other categories, you can provide that additional info. Let's say, for instance, that when we send off this material and when the facility receives it, it's described as or characterized as post-consumer food waste. Now, we could just indicate regular food waste if we wanted to, but this is just for an illustrative example. And let's say it's 1.5 tons. So enter 1.5 into tons sent, and then click save or press enter. Oops. So as you can see, something weird happened. So we're just going to try it again. We can enter in, let's just do another name. Okay, so for whatever reason, I don't know, I apologize, folks, but it didn't work the first time, but it seems to have gone through now. So once the record is saved, it takes you to this outflow details page, sub-page within the outflows tab. So you can confirm at a glance that, again, yes, this is a record of material sent for recycling composting to this facility that we mentioned here. I changed it just to see if it would, not run an error on me. But yeah, you can confirm that's the facility, and the ton sent 1.65. I also changed that in case that, I don't know, was causing it or something. And then from here, if you had additional material types, you could add those in that table. Right here on the outflow details page, or if this is the only basically the only flow to that facility, you can go back, hit the back button. That will take you back to the main outflows tab. So scrolling down, you can see. Oh, okay. So for my record, I guess it said it didn't like it, but for whatever reason, it still put it in. And then we also have this additional record that I did right after that. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave it because it doesn't really make that much of a difference. But as you can see, for each, it sends to each, at this table basically reports to the ton sent of each material type to each organization/site and reporting entity. So that's essentially the extent of the information that we're looking to be reported to the department, at least for those outflow streams for recycling, composting. We'll take a moment and add a solid waste for disposal outflow. So this is, to kind of break it down, this would be a self-hauler taking food waste to a disposal facility as opposed to a composting facility. As you can see, the procedure is relatively the same. We're on the add outflow screen again. This time the outflow stream is solid waste for disposal instead of recycling/composting. You can enter basically the name of the disposal facility right here. Let's call it Moscone. landfill, so type in MOS and the system autofills the rest. You can confirm the contact information that that's the actual facility you're sending it to. Again, we're hauling food waste, so type food waste into that material type box like we did for the last one. Let's just say we don't distinguish between pre, post. It's just food waste to us. You can just answer it at the level of handling again. That's what the regulations require. So again, let's just say this time is 0.99 tons. So you type that in and then click save or press enter, and hopefully it won't screw up. Oh, okay. So this time it went right through. It indicates that solid waste, that it confirms our entry, that we had 0.99 tons of food waste sent to this Moscone landfill. So if we're satisfied with that, again, click the back button. That will take you back to the main outflows tab. So as you can see, the solid waste record has been added. And we're going to do the end use outflow right now. So click the add end use outflow button on the top left-hand side of that table. It's going to ask you a little bit different questions because it's end user. And this is basically, again, just to remind folks, it's not to each individual end user customer. It's an end user category by region. So if you sent to 10 construction end users in LA County, you would report as an aggregate for all 10. If you sent to 1,000 end users, you'd report an aggregate for that 1,000 by county and by end user category. So hopefully this example will sort of clear that up. So again, destination information, the receiving end user, and you can select one of the end user categories prescribed by regulations. So in this case, let's say it's a manufacturing and packaging end user. So maybe they're taking food waste and dehydrating it or something, and then making a new product out of it, some kind of bagged animal feed product or something. Again, manufacturing and packaging end user in California. Since it's in California, you're required to say the county. So let's go ahead and select Los Angeles. And then material type, we can say food waste. So if you type food, it'll basically try to autofill. Let's just say food waste. And then tons sent, let's say 0.95 again. So just confirm all of that and then click the save or press the enter key. The record has been saved at the organics, food waste, 0.95 tons to end user category manufacturing packaging in Los Angeles County. So if I sent, again, it doesn't matter, to one end user or 500 end users, if they're all manufacturing packaging in LA County, it's the aggregate. Now, if it's like 300 in Kern County, you report those 300 as an aggregate. It's by county and by end user category. So click the back button. That takes you back to the main outflows tab. And then as you can see, we've done some substantial work here in filling out the respective records. So we have 2 for solid recycling, composting. We have 1 for solid waste disposal. We have a record for end users. So now we're done with the outflows tab, and we can go to the next tab, which is the documents tab. Now here, if the department required any additional documentation, you would provide that by uploading it in clicking the add document button and uploading the document that is required. The department doesn't currently have, any of those requirements as of right now. So for most cases, 99+% will not need to even interface with the Documents tab and can simply be skipped over. But I just wanted to show folks that that functionality is available. So, or if there are any documents that substantiate things in your report that you really feel proud of and want to send it, I guess that would be the place to do it. But yeah, no documents are required, and unless specifically stated by CalRecycle. On the Review and Submit tab, you can basically view, some of the information about, again, the report, that it confirmed that it's in progress. If you needed to change that, and actually turns out you actually don't need to report, you made a mistake in creating the report, you can click that button and basically say that you don't have to report, and that'll close you out of having to do all of this. So there is a functionality to kind of go back even if you have already begun the process. So you can there's some various tables and things here, but you can view at a glance kind of the outflow summary, all of the reportable material handling activities broken down by outflow stream and tons. And then, just to kind of visually confirm that that was the case. And then when you're ready to submit, first we require the RDRS review, the system do an automated review of your report, basically to see that the things that are required to be submitted, in fact, have been submitted and are submitted properly. So click the review button. It's going to pop up and ask if you're sure. Go ahead and click the you're sure and review button. Now, if we had made any mistakes, the submit button would not appear. But because I didn't make any mistakes, we're clear to submit. Now, if I had made some mistakes, this flags section basically would tell me what's going on. So I'll try in a couple of the subsequent reporting entity types to deliberately make a mistake so that the flag can catch it, and I can show you how that functionality works. But just know that there is kind of a automated check that occurs of the data to ensure completeness, and that's for your benefit, to basically make sure that everything is there, and you don't want to submit an incomplete report, because when you submit a report, you're attesting that the information provided is true and accurate, to the best of your knowledge. So we're going to expect thorough and complete reporting when you hit that submit button. And if there's revisions required and so on, that's all going to be logged. And if it is deemed to be kind of excessive or an abuse of the report, of the revisions, that can be subject to enforcement action by the department. But I don't think that would ever happen with you all. So go ahead and click the submit button. It's going to basically say, give you some scary language about, false reporting and stuff. And you go ahead and say that, confirm that that's your submission. And at which point it will enter the data. As you can see, it's popped up a thank you message saying that everything was entered in correctly, and your responsibility for the quarter 4 reporting has been basically satisfied, and it is now complete at this point. No further action on your part is required for that reporting entity. because you've satisfied your obligation in reporting. So we're going to have this great new feature where you can download a copy of your report by clicking the Export Report button. That will give you a download of basically every single tab and every single thing you've reported, and also indicates that it has basically it confirms your submittal. It has when it occurred, so you can take that to your boss, or you can file it and say, look, we're done here. Here it is. It's complete. I submitted it to the state. So that kind of ties it up in a nice bow for you, and something that you can keep for your records or as a memento for your great accomplishment. So yeah, and if any revisions are required, there's a button down here on the lower right, Revise Report. That will basically just reopen the reporting. Of course, like I said, that action will be logged, and the old report will still be in the system. It will just be, when you submit the new report, it will be marked as it's been superseded by a new revision. So of course, you can feel free to enter any revisions as necessary, so that we have the most accurate data in the reporting system. So that essentially is a long-winded way of summarizing what kind of functionality the system has, kind of baseline level. In the next in the next few sections, we'll get a little bit more complicated. There's going to be some more tabs, some more information potentially required to be submitted. So I think now would be a good time to open it up to any questions from in the room. If anyone was unclear about some of the form fields, raise your hand or come right up here, actually, please. Seeing none, let's see if we have any. No, nobody has any online questions. Very good. Everyone understood that quite well. Oh, we have a gentleman coming up. Hello, sir. Please say your name
Hello.
and affiliation.
John Hamilton, City of Los Angeles.
Hello.
How you doing? So the question I've been getting is, do we have to continue reporting to the county, or the county reporting is now ceased at this third quarter?
Excellent question. So the old DRS system, as I said, that required the facilities to submit to the county. So those regulations are basically going to sunset. So there's not going to be that requirement in state law. However, I don't want to step on toes, because if there may be county-specific ordinances or agreements where the facilities are still required to provide the information to the county. So I would say, but as state law does not require, or regulations don't require continued submittal to the county. It would be directly into this system.
I see. So we should talk to our county representatives then about that?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of like the SWIMS database and whatnot, yeah, I think it would be pertinent to have those kinds of conversations.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to keep it chugging along here. Let me just check in on time briefly. Yeah, so about an hour has elapsed. We're approximately on schedule, more or less. What we'll want to do is get out of this and go back to another organization / site, so I can continue along with the presentation here. So what we'll want to do is, let's say maybe you're a vertically integrated company or something, you have multiple facilities or operations on different sites everywhere around the state. You may have multiple entities for whom you need to submit a quarterly report. So in that case, let's say you finished with the one, now you got to do the other. So you would want to go to the left-hand navigation pane. I zoomed out while I was talking so that this left-hand side is now visible. But you can click that switch add organization / site button. I know that's a huge mouthful, but that basically takes you back to what we're, for all intents and purposes, calling the home page, the main dashboard, for which you view your various organizations slash sites. So, if you had more than one that you were reporting for that's on different sites, you would basically want to select that here. So in keeping with kind of our quest to unpack all of the reporting entity types, we're going to continue along, and this time we're going to be talking about a contract hauler. How does a contract hauler report quarterly information to the department? So for this example, we have an organization called Bye Bye Garbage. So click that record associated on that line item. Again, it pops up the summary for that registered activity. We have the contract hauler reporting entity activity on this organization that we want to submit the quarterly report for. So again, and the reason why I'm doing these first is basically to correspond with the due dates. So October 1st is when contract haulers and food waste self-haulers, the system will open up for you, and it will be due to CalRecycle at the end of October, October 31st. And this is for the period encompassing July, August, September. So that would be third quarter reporting. And then, I promised I wouldn't get too much into this, but in terms of the requirements, there's some misconceptions specifically about contract haulers. Now, if you only haul material in state, you don't have a reporting obligation to the department. It's only if you haul material out of state or to direct land application in excess of 50 tons per quarter would you need to actually interface with the system. If you're a hauler and you only take material to in-state transfer station, you do not have a reporting obligation whatsoever in this system. So maybe that will come as a relief to some folks who are watching and maybe thinking they need to interface with this. You would in that event, you would provide basically the information you're providing here to the receiving solid waste or recycling facility as appropriate, so that they can fill out their quarterly reporting. So again, in-state contract hauling reporting not required unless it's to direct land application in excess of 50 tons per quarter. So this is for instance, let's scroll down here. Basically you can confirm that you have, the various information that you've provided here and change it if needed. But this is let's just pretend that this is a facility that, not a facility, it's a hauler that exclusively takes material out of state. So how would we report that? So assuming that there is a reporting obligation here, how would we do that? Again, click that quarterly reports button on the left-hand side of the navigation pane. Scroll down and you can see any previous reports you've submitted. So for any folks following along at home, we did this report in the September 9th CalRecycle workshop in Sacramento. So what we'll do here is click the button at the top left, add report. And a lot of this is going to be similar to what we just did with the food waste self-hauler. So for that, I sincerely apologize. I'm not trying to, just hear the sound of my own voice or be pedantic. I really want to give a thorough explanation because I feel like I owe it to each, reporting entity type to really give a thorough explanation here. So, apologies if this is any repeated information. Just, want to take the time to be thorough with this. So select the reporting entity activity that you're reporting for on the site. And the reason for this is because there could be more than one reporting entity activity on a site. For instance, a transfer station co-located with a landfill, there would need to be two separate reports for that site. But in this case, it's just the contract hauler. So we can just select that and then quarter 4, and then indicate that we're required to report this quarter. No applicable exemption this time. So click save, and that will generate the quarterly report. So again, there's several tabs here. You'll want to go through them in order, in sequence, so that the information can be, entered in the correct order. The instructions tab is what you jump off with. Again, it's similar verbiage to what we saw in the food waste self-hauler. Just take a gander at your contact information, make sure anything hasn't changed. Like how you go to the doctor's office and they ask you if any of your insurance information has changed. It's kind of like that. It's just we want to take some opportunities to make sure that everything is in order. Because that's technically part of the quarterly report, and we wouldn't want to have outdated information continue to be in the system. So that's why we remind folks, to get that right each quarter. But yeah, let's assume that nothing's changed. We're still here, so we can go to the outflows tab. Once again, now the outflows tab is very much the same for all reporting entity types, not just the food waste self-hauler one that we just looked at, but actually all of them. So there's some methodology questions to determine tons sent, and if you haul solid waste, it's going to ask how you determine the jurisdiction of origin for that solid waste. Or green material, potential beneficial reuse, and as well as the outflow stream. So there's, let's just click edit and get right into it. So, there's several methodology related questions. We'll get there in a second. But as you can see, there's several different outflow streams that a hauler can send to, and we're not going to cover all of those in this example, but just to show you kind of the possibilities here. So let's say, once again, rely on the receiving facility to provide the outflow amounts based on their measurement of tons using certified scales. Then let's say how do we determine the jurisdiction of origin? Let's say billing records for customers in each jurisdiction. That's how we determined it. Of course, if none of these applied, you could click this other and then specify. What kind of material are we actually taking out of state? Well, let's say we sent recycling and composting material out of state, so we check that outflow stream box. In addition, we took solid waste to out-of-state landfill, so let's check that box. And then let's say green material, potential beneficial reuse. We take out-of-state landfill. So those are going to be our 3 outflow streams that we'll sort of demo here. Click the save button or press enter. Then the things that you checked will appear right here, and then the various outflow streams that you selected, there will be tables popping up for each one of them, just like how we did in the last example. And all examples going forward will be like this. So let's say, yes, we're taking it to an out-of-state recycling facility. So add recycling composting outflow. They'll confirm that it's a recycling composting outflow going out of state. Let's say to Nevada. So you could select that from the drop down. under material type, let's go ahead and, I don't know, we could say like mixed, um, mixed glass. Sure, why not? And how much of that are we sending? Let's say 6 tons. So press enter or click save. Now, you'll notice, you may have noticed, that it did not ask for the contact information of the out-of-state recycling facility. That's done on purpose. It's a result of the regulatory, just the way that things shaked out in terms of the regulations development, is that if you're taking material out of state, the contact information is not a requirement for recycling outflows. So we've actually entered all of the required information that 6 tons of mixed glass were sent for recycling and composting to Nevada. So let's say that was the only recycling hauled. During the quarter, we can click the back button. And just like the previous example, let's say we're now going to go to an out-of-state landfill or disposal facility. So click that add solid waste for disposal outflow button. That takes you to this add outflow subpage once again. Now you can indicate that it was a out-of-state facility, in this case, Dry Creek landfill. If you start typing dry, it comes up. You could enter, the ton sent. So let's say 150 tons, and then you can type, and then you can press enter or click save. Again, you're brought to the outflow details page. So you can confirm 150 tons sent to that facility. If that looks right, you can click the back button. Now we're back on the main outflows tab once again and chugging right along. So now we're going to add our last outflow stream record, the green material for potential beneficial reuse outflow. So click the add. Once again, it's going to ask where it's going. You notice that there's not an option to say in-state because that's not required. In RDRS, it's contract haulers going out of state only. Let's say we took that to the same facility, Dry Creek landfill in Oregon, and let's say it's 25.5 tons, and click save or press enter key. You can confirm that. If that looks acceptable to you, press the back button. And now taking a look, scrolling down, you can see that we've answered the methodology questions. We've provided the records for recycling, composting, solid waste, and green material, beneficial reuse. So that's essentially that's the extent, let's say that's the extent of the operations for this quarter. So we're done with this tab. So we can move on to the next one, which is disposal origin. So move your mouse up there and then click to go to that tab. Of course, there's a reminder that outflows need to be completed before disposal origins. So for each destination facility, so we're only sending to one, but if there were more than one, you would do it for each disposal facility. This is where you enter the jurisdiction of origin information for this. So you click, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, my narration. I have a tendency to do that, I apologize. So you select the record for Dry Creek landfill to enter the jurisdiction of origin information for that facility. then it'll pop up this disposal origins details page. There's information, you can confirm that, again, it's the 150 tons we sent to Dry Creek. Where did that come from? Where was the waste generated? Where did the curbside hauler pick this material up from? Well, you'll say right here, basically there's a search box and it has the jurisdiction of origin information. Now, last time I checked this thing, there's a slight bug with it, but yeah, so that's going to continue to be the case. But when this is released, this box will be searchable and autofill and all that. But for instance, let's just say it's let's say it's Colfax. Now that's in Placer County, I believe. So you would enter the tons that came from Colfax. So of that 150 tons, let's say 75 were from Colfax. So enter 75 and hit save. And then essentially keep adding records until you've finished entering all the information. Let's say the other 75 tons came from Placer, unincorporated Placer County. So, or you wouldn't have to scroll down to it. You could just type it, but I'm just going to do that here. So let's enter 75 tons for Placer County unincorporated and click save. So now we've assigned all of the tons to the jurisdictions of origin as required. Now, something to keep in mind here is that jurisdiction of origin is basically incorporated city or unincorporated county or a regional agency that's been established. So jurisdictions like East Pasadena, that's not a jurisdiction, that's part of LA unincorporated. So it's important to keep that in mind, when you're filling this out, is that, you want to be as specific as you can about the actual, what that actually means in terms of, geographical boundaries and solid waste jurisdiction boundaries and so on. So there isn't the ability to type in, for instance, East Pasadena and then have that be recognized as LA unincorporated. You would need to roll it up into that sort of level of detail if, you haven't done so. So just wanted to point that out for, kind of training and best practices purposes. So now we're finished with the disposal origins tab since we only sent to one landfill, and we've assigned all the jurisdiction of origin information. So we can proceed to the next tab, green material origins. So click on that tab. We sent 25.5 tons of green material, potential beneficial reuse to Dry Creek. If there were other landfills, they would appear in this table. So click that record. Now it's basically going to ask you where that material came from, just like for disposal origin. So I'm going to go through this really quickly, just kind of assign like a random one. Let's just say Amador did all 25.5 tons of that beneficial reuse green material. So you would enter that in there. It says 100%, so it matches, what we said we sent, and so we are basically completed. That this tab is now complete. We've assigned the jurisdiction of origin for the green material, potential beneficial reuse outflow to Dry Creek landfill. So we can move on to the next tab, source sectors. All right, now there's a methodology question. So that's going to ask how you came up with your source sector figure. So what we're actually going to do here is, because I said I was going to try to trigger the flags. We're going to intentionally not answer that question and see what happens come time to review. So I'm going to, of course, you want to answer that question, but to demonstrate the error, the bug hunting and checking functionality, I'm going to leave that blank. Below that, you can see the source sector table. And so what the regulations require is that the solid waste tons be broken down into tonnage or percent residential, commercial, and self-haul. Of course, self-haul isn't applicable to contract hauler because you're basically by definition hauling. It's not self-haul. So in that event, let's just say, just to be real simple, 50% came from commercial sector, and then 50% came from residential sector. So click edit, and in line, it'll allow you to edit in that table, 50%, and press save. Now we've allocated we have assigned a source sector to all of the disposal tons hauled during the quarter. So it's really as simple as that. It's just as an aggregate for all the solid waste that you hauled, what were the source sectors. So that completes, well, it doesn't complete, but because I didn't answer this, but we're gonna move on anyway. I'm just going to skip over the Documents tab because I think I already gave kind of an outline of what is required there. For right now, nothing is required. So move to the Review and Submit tab. Again, you can view information about this report. Click the Review button, and that will have RDRS take a glance at the information that you've provided. So it'll refresh that page, and as you can see, because I made an error, the Submit button does not pop up right away. So I'll need to figure out sort of what's going on with my report. And to do that, you can scroll down, and like I said, in the Flags button, the Flags section, a correction required flag has been generated. And you can see that it's an active issue by the status field being demarcated as open. You can view the source, which is what tab you made the error on. It basically has a very layman's description of the error, and then a very technical description of the error. So you can basically review that, and what it says is that you did not answer the source sector methodology questions, because as a contract hauler, you exported direct hauled solid waste to one or more destinations out of state. On the source sector tab, select edit and select one or more methodology question check marks on how you track and assign source sector. So we'll follow the directions listed there and telling me how I need to fix my report. So that's a very handy feature, I think, for folks that can view, that the mistakes they'll basically tell you how you can correct your mistakes. So that I feel like that's a pretty good feature of the system. So what we're going to want to do is you can either get to the source sectors page by left-clicking on that link, and it'll bring you back to it. Oh, hopefully. I don't know what happened there. Let me just go back if I can. And I'm just going to go there manually for now. Oh, I guess it really did kick me out. Apologies, this shouldn't happen with the release version. Yeah, so it takes us right back here to this source sectors page. And so following the instructions on the flag, click the edit button and then provide the appropriate source sector methodology. So in this case, we assign the source sector based on the billing records. So click that checkbox and then click save. It has now recorded our answer for the source sector methodology question. So now we can go back to the review and submit tab, click the review button once again, and review. And now the submit button does pop up. So if you take a look down in the flags table, the status has been changed to closed. So that indicates that whereas that was an issue before, it's no longer one, and you're free and clear to submit the report once all of the flags have been addressed. So click the submit button. It's going to give you that, are you sure? Say, yes, I'm sure by clicking the submit button once again. And there we go. Another report successfully submitted to CalRecycle. So you'll receive, as the note says, you receive a summary and a confirmation. There's also the ability to export the report, basically confirming the submittal, and then an ability to revise the report if necessary. So that about wraps it up for contract hauler. How's everybody doing? Should we, let's take a moment for questions. If you have them, please don't hesitate to come right up to the dais here, and we can help you out. You want to?
Loud enough. What happens if
We're
they don't fill out the report?
webcasting? Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Nadie Mackling from the city of LA. What happens, so it looks like the system is ready by October 1? It
Yes.
will go live?
Yes.
So what happens if those who are supposed to be doing the report using the RDRS, what if they don't do that? How much time do they have? Do they have until December 1 or November 1 or next year?
Oh, so the reporting opens on October 1st and is due to CalRecycle at the end of October.
And if they don't do that, what are the ramifications?
The reporting entity may be subject to enforcement action. There was a question about transfer station reporting. We're going to cover that next, but the reporting will open up November 1st and be due to CalRecycle at the end of November for quarter 3, so July, August, September. Hello.
Hi, Bill O'Grady, Talco Plastics. What are the enforcement actions?
Yes, as part of, the department may issue a notice of violation, and if the corrective action is not taken, ultimately the reporting entity that is non-compliant may be subject to administrative civil penalties ranging from, I don't know, there's a penalty table in the regulations, but it's anywhere from like $500 to $5,000 per violation per day. All right, and any other questions from in the room? Not seeing any, no questions from online so far. So, yeah, I think we're doing pretty well so far. Let's just keep on chugging, shall we? So, just like I did in the previous example, to get out of all of this and to get back to essentially what we're calling the home page, click that switch. On the left-hand navigation pane, there's the switch/add organization/site button, and that will take us right back to the home screen. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit here, and yeah, you can now view the organizations/sites once again that you've registered for. And for this one, we're going to select the transfer processing facility or operation. Paul, can we get that back up on there? Sorry. Yeah, transfer processor, let's report for Betty Davis Island Transfer Station. So click within that record, that will pull up the registration profile for that facility. As you can see, there's one reporting entity activity on the site, the transfer processor. And so we're going to follow the same procedure we've been doing. Click the quarterly reports button on the left-hand navigation pane. That will load a report. So you can see that in the previous workshop, we did one for quarter 3. So for this one, we'll do quarter 4. So click the add report button at the top left-hand side of the table to add your quarterly report for the transfer processor. Select the activity from the drop-down and the reporting period, so fourth quarter 2019. And in this case, we're going to say we're required to report. So press enter or click save to continue. And as you might be able to guess, this adds the quarterly report, same procedure as the previous couple examples. Now, this looks a little bit intimidating, especially because, you know, in the previous couple reporting entities, there weren't quite so many tabs. Transfer processing facilities and operations are probably some of the most complicated reporting entity, and they have the most requirements in the system. So it necessitates you know, having all those tabs there that you need to fill out. Now, transfer processors also, in addition to reporting what leaving their facility, they also need to report some information about what comes into the facility. So, you know, there's you'll notice that there's an inflows tab, and you know, some information is required to be entered in there as well. So because transfer processors have, you know, the most requirements in the regulations, I want to spend, you know, about an hour or so taking care of this one. So I'm suspecting that about halfway through my presentation of transfer processor, we'll take a break. So how about at 3? Oh, okay. Tell you what, then, in about 15 minutes, or actually in about 7 minutes, we'll take a break. That'll put us at about 2:40, and then we'll take maybe about a 20-minute break or so, and give folks time to kind of unpack or decompress and take in a little bit of this information. Paul pointed out to me that the cafeteria will close at 3, so I just want to give folks some time if you need to run over and get some afternoon coffee going or something. We want to make the snacks, juice, that kind of thing. You know, that is available. So let's try to dovetail that with what we got going on over there. So take a quick break at about 2:40, and then come back at 3 sharp, and we'll pick it right back up. So let's just, I think in the next 5 minutes or so, that'll be good to give folks kind of an overview of what we're all dealing with in terms of what's required for transfer processor. Sound good? Okay. So again, instructions tab. As is the case before, you'll want to confirm that the information that you have provided in the report is accurate in terms of your contact information and the like. So if there are any changes, there's a way to do that there. If everything's good, continue to the inflows tab. So on the inflows tab, you'll report receiving materials. You will not report on tons of inbound recyclables, but you will report on inflows of solid waste, green material, potential beneficial reuse, non-green material, potential beneficial reuse, disaster debris, and designated waste. And you'll also need to answer some methodology questions related to the methods used to determine tons accepted at the facility. And if you ended up changing values from when other transfer processors report sending you material, a reason why the modification took place. So you can do this in whatever order you like, as long as you sort of stay on this tab. But we'll begin by answering the methodology questions. So click the Edit button. Now answer the first question, methods used to determine tons accepted at the facility. Check all the boxes that apply to this reporting entity. If you plan on modifying the tons reported sent to your facility from other facilities, you'll provide a justification for doing so. So when you're finished, click Save. So we'll just check those two for now. Now you'll notice that the check boxes that you've selected appear back in the main tab and are grayed out. If you need to make additional modifications, you can click the Edit button once again. And so below this section, there are 3 tables in which you will place data about material received by your reporting entity. This is the first table. It will be pre-populated with data already in the system as of the opening of your report. The system will alert you about other transfer processors that have already submitted their reports who have indicated sending your transfer processor reporting entity some material. For instance, a total of 4 records would, if you received solid waste and green material from 2 other transfer processors upstream, you would, in this table here, see 4 total records, 2 for solid waste disposal coming from the other transfer processors, and 2 for green material, potential beneficial reuse coming from other transfer processors. So that's the logic behind this first table. This will come up with when facilities send you material and have submitted their reports already. So you'll either accept, modify, or reject those incoming tonnages. And no data will be accepted into the report by default. Even if the tonnages are correct, you still need to assign disposition to each item in the table, accepted, rejected, or modified. If another transfer processor submitted their report after you have already opened yours, you can check to see by clicking this Refresh Tonnages Reported by Transfer Processors button, and the system will check to see if there's anything new for you. So in terms of best practices, I would advise transfer processors who receive material from upstream transfer processors to have, encourage them to submit their reports first. That way, you won't have to enter that information as well. You'll simply be able to click Accept when it comes time to file your report. So that's what we're advising in terms of transfer station to transfer station flows and interactions. We would encourage, have a good relationship where, you know, they can submit and then you can basically indicate, yes, we received that. And that would be the, you know, the ideal order so that all the information can be tracked and kept together. Otherwise, you know, if this downstream facility were to report prior to the upstream one, a reconciliation process would need to occur to make sure that those tonnages matched up and those flows were identified as the same. It's 2:40, so let's take a 20-minute break and get some refreshments and get ourselves sorted. So we'll come right back at 3 sharp, and we'll continue discussing the inflows. Thank you very much for your attention.
until break time, or can we ask you?
Yeah, let me just finish up with this gentleman.
Oh. Okay. Hi. You know me, Navy, Jerry here.
How you doing? Good. So,
We're City of LA.
so right now, county reports, county public works is pretty much the jurisdiction that reports to the county, right? Through, they report, they collect it through SWIM, and then they report their SWIMs to DRS.
Yes.
This will be the last reporting period that will be in place.
this the last reporting period? What happened?
October.
Right, right. So then DRS goes away,
Yes.
so in essence, SWIMs will no longer be reporting.
The
to
swims
the
go away.
system.
Yeah, there's no.
There's no SWIMs upload from SWIMs to DRS.
Right.
Each jurisdiction will now be responsible. Am I correct?
Each facility.
Just the
Don't
facility.
say the jurisdiction.
So the facilities will be the ones reporting
Each individual facility.
the origins of waste
Yes,
brought to their facility.
yes. For material received from direct.
Direct haul from jurisdiction.
It's not the jurisdiction, but the jurisdiction, i.e. Lara indirectly makes sure that the facilities that my jurisdiction uses is doing the reporting, which is still back to my question that some facilities will not do that, will not do the reporting,
Well, see,
according to
that's-
the RDRS.
But see, then that's where it's incumbent on the driver that's taking material to that facility. It's properly reporting the origin where that material is collected from. And then the facility on their end needs to properly track the origin of that material on their reporting system for the purposes of reporting to the RDRS.
Did you help design this?
Yeah, the rulemaking.
What are the challenges to this? What are the anticipated challenges?
Brought up, I think, one of the biggest ones is, lines, people can't get the facilities
Because that's his challenge. His challenge too is here's the hauler taking it to the facility and saying this came from Los Angeles, and Los Angeles is now not Los Angeles. We have Recycla. We want it to be coming
Well,
from
but see, that's
Recycla.
at our level, how we need them to report the material back to us. Right? Because we have the 11 zones and the 7 franchise haulers. So that's kind of a different reporting system than the RDRS. So then ours is monthly and RDRS is quarterly.
Who is Duke? Oh.
I was, because I was with the LEA.
Ah.
Over with,
How do you spell his name? Oops. D-U-C. That's it?
Yeah.
Duck Bowie. Yeah. County, LA County. Okay. LA County.
Sand?
Oh, no,
Public Works.
Public Works, whatever one does.
Public Works. Yeah, so, yeah. So where there's gonna be loss potential, again, is if they're not recording properly when recording it, when it's coming across the scales.
Good. Yeah, we babysat on Saturday. You see him a lot? Yeah. See her a lot? We fortunate to have a guy.
Unfortunately, we did run up there for the Labor Day weekend. And saw herds are maybe an hour.
Your voice is so high.
And that was Grandparents' Day on Sunday.
When you hear your own voice,
It's Nicole
it's rattling in your head,
text
so you sound
saying, hey, can you FaceTime? It's Grandparents' Day. Yeah, like, Boo, haven't been walking.
I don't think there's any 20%
And it's something going on what you do. We're hearing things, so. Right? You've got to be always on. You forget about that when you're. Exactly.
And they've got it every day.
Oh my goodness.
I
You
mean,
did it at one time, you did,
know,
but it's different. You just don't realize you've got to be constantly watching every
Next
move.
morning, I was like ready to get out of there.
Thank God they're gonna come get us.
Yeah.
how it started, what it was.
She's getting a lot more animated now. She's not quite here, but she's starting to crawl.
Good, good. Yeah, wait till she's talking and stuff, then you can't shut her up.
Well, we can't shut her up right now.
Yeah.
I mean, she doesn't talk, obviously, but
Right.
she makes a lot of noise.
Good. Well, as long as she's healthy and everything's good.
I really, I mean, I feel
Yeah.
like, I mean, I wasn't even there,
Yeah.
except for, I arrived like 3 days later. I had a picture
It's a
of
handful.
Roger there too.
Robin loves it.
Oh, yeah.
She's in her element, but boy,
Yeah, I didn't show, I had some videos, but I only showed one.
Well, when it's Dan and I, it's always me.
When I was trying to
of
practice.
course.
You know, he takes off and goes golfing, or we'll take her down to the park. I'm the one that's gonna make sure that we get back and, you know, taking all the stuff that we need, and then he sits down and watches TV, and
That actually worked pretty good.
she's going anywhere else but sitting there, just relaxing.
That's exactly it.
A little,
Robin will sit on the floor with her all day. I'll be watching sports or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But then I'll have to make the bottle. She got to feed her every
grown and
2
flew it
or
around the
3,
site.
every 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah,
So I've been doing all the bottle prep and
before shot. That was the before shot, yeah.
Yeah, that was the one that Jackie.
are they done or they want more?
Yeah, that was pretty good.
they want
Yeah, it
one.
was a
They
good
want
one.
another one.
And, so everybody saw that.
Two's a good number.
Yeah, I think one more is all they're going to get.
She said, you know, it wasn't really too much you could do about it.
She's a
And
year
I
older
told
than
them,
Jason.
the main thing from the talk was, you know,
She's in her
did,
50s,
hopefully,
thirties.
let's just say different right now.
They want to have
It's,
her before she's 40.
Right,
Once it caught fire, you just let it burn
yeah,
out.
time's limited.
Because it was just too much fuel there.
It's too soon now. So.
Just sit back for whatever, 5-6 hours.
And my girlfriend's
Then you
middle
want
son,
to try to
they were trying to have kids, they've been married for 5 years,
some finesse,
4
try to
years,
put out.
5 years. Couldn't get pregnant. The youngest son got, you know, married and had a kid within a year.
Man, they had some of the
The other one's on their third,
presentations
and
there, they had
they have problems.
piles.
So they finally did in vitro. And
30, 40, 50
they've been
piles.
working out inches
Catching
and
fire.
whatever, and it's been dragging on, dragging on. It's been like 3 years, 4 years that they've been doing this.
Helicopters coming in and trying
Finally found out that she's pregnant. They did in vitro, so they did how many eggs? And they, 2 of them took, so they're having twins.
Now, that usually happens.
They put 3 in, I think, but they're in it.
It's expensive.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But, you know, there's a lot of people, or a lot of families that start on that. Just go in vitro, and then give up, and then they end up
diameter.
Our neighbors had triplets, and I think they must, I don't know them that well, but A and A had triplets. They just graduated from high school and they're starting college now. One of them's a little slow, the other 2.
I think that's generally the case when you have 3 kids close together, even triplets or like that. There's always going to be one that kind of like is lags behind,
Yeah.
but then they make it up in the end.
You're all set to go whenever you'd like.
Because of the new whatever, and, or the orders that they're getting from us. And, it's just, man, it's getting old. It's just something about not talking. I haven't talked to him for probably 20 years.
Oh, we see them all the time.
Do you?
Well, not all the time. We see them at least once a year at recycling.
Okay, all right. Well, I
Roger
haven't
would tell you that.
yeah, I have his oldest son is third year in college, and Tom is in senior in high school. He's like, wow.
Howdy, folks. Thanks for hanging in there. We're going to pick it back up. We still have some ground to cover here. We left off talking about the inflows tab, transfer processing facilities and operations. And I just discussed the functionality of the table one, the auto-populated table where upstream transfer processing facilities who indicated sending your material, your facility material, that would appear on that table, table one. Now, the next table below that one, you'll enter material streams from each transfer processor not listed above. And hopefully this won't be the case because everyone will have reported correctly in RDRS. But this is what I refer to as the manual method. Because, under normal circumstances, you've communicated the need for the upstream transfer processor to the report, and they've been compliant in doing so. But let's say, it's crunch time, they haven't turned in the report, identifying your transfer processor as the entity receiving their materials. You just like to type in their information and just move on with your report. So you would click the add inflow, and on the next screen, you'd be prompted to enter some information about the tons received from other those upstream transfer processors who, for whatever reason, did not show up on that table above. So for this, for expediency's sake, we'll not be demonstrating how to do this, but it's self-explanatory. You're actually not responsible for providing the jurisdiction of origin for tons received from other transfer processors. So you'd provide the total aggregated tons of each stream received from each transfer processor not listed in the first table. Oh, by the way, we received some email online questions during the break, and I will take those just as soon as we're finished with this tab. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. In this third table, this is the direct haul, and you list the total aggregated tons of each stream you receive from direct haul, meaning anyone who isn't another transfer processor. So material received from recycler composters would go in here. Material received from in-state contract haulers would go in here. And material received from self-haulers would go in here as an aggregate. So you don't need to break it down by reporting entity. It's as an aggregate for each stream. So I'll show exactly how to do that. Let's say over the course of the quarter, we received 1,000 tons of solid waste. Click Add Inflow at the top right of the total material accepted for direct haul at your facility table. Select the material stream, solid waste for disposal, and enter 1,000 tons, and click Save. Now, let's do a few more. Let's say we received 12,000 tons of disaster debris over the quarter. Let's say, there was some sort of natural disaster or something, which I'm afraid is becoming all too common. So we would click, accept that material accepted over the quarter that was disaster debris, and click Save. Of course, as I pointed out in previous workshops, and I don't necessarily expect you to know this, but disaster debris does not require jurisdiction of origin, in contrast to solid waste disposal. Hopefully, from a jurisdictional standpoint, this will decrease the need for disposal modifications, but I don't really want to jump off too much about that at this time. Let's go ahead and add 500, let's say we got 500 tons of green material for potential beneficial reuse, and click Save. And in the previous workshops, I added more, but just for other streams. But for expediency's sake, again, let's just go with these three. So over the course of the quarter, this transfer station, in this example, let's say we actually didn't get any material from other transfer stations, we only got it from direct haul. So we've populated the tab with the total aggregated tons of direct haul from each stream over the course of the quarter. So, depending on what your facility does, this example may be more or less relevant. So, if apologies for not working through the complete example. I just wanted to kind of give a abridged version just for time's sake. So at this point, let's go ahead and check in with the online, see what kind of questions they may have had.
Okay, we have one question regarding the timing of reporting between transfer facilities. So their facility both receives and sends material to other facilities. So how can we wait to reconcile incoming tons with other facilities while other facilities are waiting for us to report our outgoing?
So if I think I understand the question correctly, there's not necessarily a need to reconcile, I think, within the context of the quarter, because you're not taking the jurisdiction of origin information is not being reported on by you, the material for the solid waste that you take from other transfer processors. So even without, as long as you know the total tons of each stream received from those upstream transfer processing facilities, you should be able to, you have all the information that you need at that point in time to complete what you need to do in the context of your report. I think I covered that. But yeah, essentially, yeah, you can still provide the tons from those upstream transfer processors who haven't yet submitted their reports. And then when it comes time for, let's say they submit it late, for just to take an example. Whenever they do submit, their data will be compared to the data that was reported from that downstream transfer processor. And like I said, there will be a reconciliation process, but that's after the quarter has closed. And that's to basically connect the outflows from the one facility to the inflows of the other facility. So I think that gets at the question a little bit. You still can answer you can still submit your report, even though other transfer processors haven't yet, upstream may not have submitted their reports. As long as you know the tons received from each upstream transfer processor, you can still submit your report. However, there will be a reconciliation process in terms of the jurisdiction of origin, and that will have to be done, at the time of whenever the upstream processor submits their report. Anything else? All right. Anything from in person, if you want to make yourself known and come on down. Otherwise, I'm going to just proceed along sequentially with the tabs. So, yeah, I'm afraid you would have to come down here, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Annalie, and I come from Grand Central Recycling. My question is, am I going to have to report to the landfills the jurisdictions reports?
So are you a solid waste facility?
Transfer station.
Oh, okay. So do you report the jurisdiction of origin to the land? You report the jurisdiction of origin. Let's see here. I'm just trying to understand the procedure, or connect the dots in my head. My understanding, okay, here we go. You report you do jurisdiction of origin information in our DRS and submit your report. and you indicate that you are sending material to the landfill. I'm going to cover this in the outflows tab next. But yeah, you report tons sent to that landfill, and then you also provide the jurisdiction of origin breakdown of that material in RDRS. Then when the landfill opens up their report, this is after you've already submitted, and this is because of the staggered due dates. So transfer processors submit by November, and then disposal facilities open up their reports after that. So basically, when they load their report, they'll see that you reported sending them material, and the jurisdiction of origin information will be just passed right through the system.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for your question. It took me a while to sort of wrap my head around that one, but I think, that's essentially the flow of how we want the information to be provided to the department, and how the information would be passed between reporting entities. Excellent question. With that in mind, let's take that example and put it into practice. So, yes, please. So we'll go to the outflows tab. And so just like the gentlelady said, we're a transfer processor. We want to send material to the landfill for disposal. So how would we do that in the system, and how does the landfill receive that information and then submit their report? That'll actually come when we fill out the report for the landfill. So the outflows tab, now this isn't anything new for you. This will be the third time you've seen this, basically, in this workshop. There's the methodology questions. You hit edit on the last screen. You indicate how you track or determine the tons. You say what the outflow streams are. So let's say a recycling stream. We're sending solid waste to disposal, as we said. We're sending disaster debris to disposal. And we're sending green material for potential beneficial reuse in landfill. So click Save or press Enter key, and that will confirm in those four material streams going out of the facility. All right, so now we're going to add a recycling/composting outflow by scrolling down to that new table that was added as a result of us having indicated that there was recycling composting. Click Add Recycling Composting Outflow Plus button at the top of that table there. This will take you to the Add Outflow page where you fill in required destination information. And you can verify right there that this is a recycling composting outflow stream by looking at material sent for recycling composting. So you'll click a radio button next to the appropriate entry indicating whether it's in or out of state or wherever. And then let's say let's go with that glass cullet. Let's say glass cullet. So we'll just start typing in. Oh, that's the wrong. See, I'm getting into trouble here. This is actually the box where you would indicate the facility. So let's say we sent that to a recycling facility. Glass, and there happens to be a glass cullet recycling facility called Glass Cullet Industries that I have registered. So let's say we're sending glass cullet to this facility here. And the material type drop down, start typing glass color. Oh, it's right there. Let's just say it's all different kinds of colors. We're not really sorting it out like that. Maybe the downstream facility, the sending facility, or the receiving facility does, but we don't. So let's just say it's glass cullet mixed, basically, 0.95 tons of it, and click Save or press Enter. So much like the previous example, takes us to that outflow details page where we can confirm that line item and add any other materials sent there. Of course, this facility just deals with glass cullet, so we're not going to add any other materials. So we'll just click back. If there were other recycling facilities that you sent material to, you would add those in the table. Of course, this is confusing because you don't report on the recyclables received, but you do report on the recyclables going out. That's just how the regulations shook out, and in terms of our regulatory authority to require the collection of certain data, we're not pursuing the data of the tons of inbound recyclables, only the outbound. So let's add a solid waste outflow for disposal by clicking the Add Solid Waste for Disposal Outflow button. And see, I think we had indicated receiving 1,000 tons of solid waste. So let's just send it all to one landfill, Moscone, and confirm the contact information, 1,000 tons, and press enter or click save. Again, takes you to that outflow details page. Confirm that and then click the back button. Now you can see it shows up on that table. And then disaster debris, I think we said 10,000 or 12,000. But since we're unsure, there's actually a summary table below this. And I should have mentioned this before, I apologize. But the summary table basically provides an at-a-glance view for saying how much inflow you received, like what we said on the last page. We said we got 12,000 tons of disaster debris. And then it shows how many we've sent out already and then how many tons are remaining. Of course, because of stockpiling and stuff like that, you may very well go over. You're allowed to go over you can send out more material than you indicated receiving. Then there was, so designated waste, we didn't have that. Green material, the 500 tons still remaining to be allocated. And then as you can see, since there's no inflow of recycling, we can only show you on this table the tons outflow of recycling. Same for end use and material sent to brokers and transporters. So enough talk, let's just add the disaster debris already. So click that button to add disaster debris for disposal outflow. And it's very similar to what we just did with the solid waste outflow. It's going to ask for the name of the facility. And so whenever it stops spinning, I will add and indicate Moscone, since that's the facility that we've been using, and 12,000, and then press enter or click save. Again, outflow details page so you can confirm that record. Click the back button. Again, takes you back to that main outflows tab. And now we've added 3 out of the 4 outflow streams. Let's add that 500 tons of green material, beneficial reuse outflow. So click the add button above that respective table. And as soon as the drop down is populated with records, we will type Moscone and then 500 tons. Okay, so just like all the other ones, outflow details page, click the back button, and now we've basically, if you take a look at the summary table, there was 1,000 tons received, and we've sent out 1,000 tons of solid waste. There's 12,000 received and 12,000 sent out. 500 tons green material received, 500 tons green material sent out, and then other various things on there. So we're basically taken care of. We've allocated all the material that we need to. Let's go over to the next tab, disposal allocations. Actually, before I do that, let's just take the temperature here. Are we doing all right so far? Okay. Anything from online? Okay, we're doing well here. Okay, the disposal allocations. Now, this is going to be not very illustrative because ordinarily this is where you provide the the proportion of direct hauled solid waste versus the solid waste accepted from other transfer processors and then sent to each destination solid waste facility. Actually, this page looks a lot better if I zoom out a little bit. I do apologize for that. You can take a look here at this table, allocation by facility. Each facility material was sent to, and then under Moscone landfill, sent to the direct haul, you can see 1,000 tons. So ordinarily, if transfer stations, they accept material, as I said, from other transfer processors and then from direct haul. And then, but when you're sending that out, it could very well be the case that the proportions change in terms of the percent sent to Moscone that was direct hauled versus from other transfer processors. So we needed the ability to modify those tons and how they're proportioned out. Or those tons of solid waste, are they, is it like 65% coming from the solid waste sent to Moscone landfill? 65% was from transfer station waste received and 35 from direct haul. You can modify those allocation percentages basically to correspond with other things that took place at the facility. For instance, I know that material from transfer stations is dirty, and it does not sort out very well. So a higher proportion of transfer station waste material went to landfill than the direct haul. You can make sort of those calculations and adjustments here. Of course, like I said, this is not a very illustrative example because we've only taken material from direct haul. But in the future, we will have a little bit more expanded on this in terms of concepts and the like. This may be the hardest thing to kind of grasp. And a lot of facilities, they don't even mess with this. The proportion of transfer station waste to direct hauled waste is applied to each outgoing disposal facility stream. In other words, if I get 2,000 tons from transfer stations and 1,000 tons from direct haul, that's a 2-to-1 proportion. So for each landfill I send out to, the proportion is going to be 2-to-1 transfer station waste to direct hauled waste. And so that will help suss out, the jurisdiction of origin calculations when it actually comes time for that. So we're hoping that, this transparency of the calculations, the methodologies, that sort of thing will improve the accuracy with respect to the jurisdiction of origin breakdown, even when waste flows through multiple facilities prior to being disposed. We can still track the proportions even from way upstream facility where that jurisdiction of origin actually originated. So, I don't want to delve too much into that because that's kind of very, very on the technical side of things, but I think we will release some additional documentation with respect to all of this. But for now, we'll just accept that 1,000 tons, as we said, was because the proportion is, basically all direct haul. There's no transfer station waste. So all we'll need to do is confirm, click the accept button here, and we can move to the next tab. Green material allocations. And so for this one, again, it's the same story. We don't have, there's no proportioning needed because we're not taking material from other transfer processors and blending that together with direct haul and so on. So we could just accept the 500 tons direct haul, direct transfer to Moscone landfill for potential beneficial reuse. So once that's been accepted, you can move on to the disposal origins tab. And so much like the contract hauler, their transfer processors are required to provide the jurisdiction of origin for the direct hauled solid waste they receive over the course of the quarter. So we received 1,000 tons of direct hauled solid waste. Of course, we received the 12,000 tons of disaster waste, but like I said, that doesn't require jurisdiction of origin. So for the 1,000 tons, how are we going to break that down? Well, really, I just, it doesn't really make a difference for these purposes, but I don't know, we're in Diamond Bar today. Let's pick on Diamond Bar. We could just give them 1,000 tons and hit save. So as now we've allocated all of the direct hauled solid waste that we received. So if assuming like all of your solid waste that you got from direct haul is from Diamond Bar, and this, is just an example, you would enter it as such in this table. And once you're finished with that, click Review Origin Send. And then you can scroll down and basically there's a table that confirms whether, the jurisdiction of origin and where it was, some other information about that. But then you can click Accept All, and that basically confirms, this, it closes out this table. So then we can move on to the Green Material Origins tab. So same thing, 500 tons of green material was sent to the landfill. From which jurisdiction did it originate? So, we can pick Chino, let's say 250 tons. And then, basically whatever happened during the quarter. Chino Hills, 250. So yeah, we click Review Origin Sent. And then Accept All. Then we can head to the second to last tab, Source Sectors. So this is just like the contract hauler. You would answer the methodology question, how did you determine source sector? So you could say billing records and truck type and click Save. And then in terms of percentage or tons sent, let's, we can basically say like, if we wanted to equally divide it, you can use up to 2 decimal places. And the system will handle rounding, I believe, but we can check that. So we've assigned the source sector methodology and assigned a source sector for the 1,000 tons of direct hauled solid waste received over the quarter. So now we can head to the Review and Submit tab. Click Review, and the system will take a look at what I've submitted and see if it is okay to enter into the system. Oh, it looks like we have caused a problem here. So there's 2 issues. So there's issues with the disposal allocations tab. I think we need to click this edit button and answer these questions. Now, this is a issue with the staging version of our program, but if you didn't change the default tons, you wouldn't need to answer those methodology questions. And since we didn't change the default tons, we shouldn't have to answer these, but you know, this is just kind of like a quirk of the system as it stands right now, but it will be ready for prime time fairly shortly. So let's try and see if that will take it now that we've answered those questions. Even though they were optional, it still said it was required. We'll be making that change, you know, for the prime time release. So as you can see, the flags are now in the closed status because we answered those methodology questions in those respective tabs. So we can click the submit button and say, yes, we're good to go. And a message popped up indicating that the Q4 RDRS report was entered successfully. So that completes the reporting for transfer stations. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none. Anything from online?
And the examples demonstrated the inflow and out have matched exactly, but this never happens in reality. Would that pose a problem?
No, it doesn't pose a problem. As I mentioned, for instance, there are going to be times when the total tons of material going out will be larger than the total tons of material going in. That could be for stockpiling reasons or simply because there was residuals that were generated from the source from single stream recycling activities that, you know, because the inflow of single stream recycling is not required to be reported upon, it's going to look like more left the facility than actually came in. So we're not looking for a mass balance in the system. There is going to be kind of some thresholds, like if it's more than, for instance, if you sent out 20% more than what you receive, it may ask you to confirm that entry, but it wouldn't stop you from submitting your report. It wouldn't run afoul of any, you know, regulatory provisions or anything. I mean, if that's actually what happened, then, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, the calculation should not be thrown off or anything like that because there wasn't a mass balance. There's still a way to properly allocate all of this, the material to the jurisdiction of origin on the solid waste side. Anything else? All right, thank you, Kat. All right, any last minute? Okay, we're good here. What we want to do in the next, try to condense it into maybe 30 minutes or so, is look at that landfill. So let's see. To access that landfill, I'm actually going to sign into another profile. So just bear with me. So you know how we were sending material to Moscone landfill? Well, turns out that's actually another one of my demo facilities. So we're going to open that report and see what it looks like for other people to have submitted information to the landfill. So for this, we've been saying we're doing Q4, so click on the top left to add the report for this landfill, fourth quarter. and required to report. So again, pops up that instructions tab. I think we've kind of beaten that to death already, so we can just go right ahead to the inflows page. And hopefully, yeah, so like I've been saying, when other upstream facilities submit their reports indicating material was sent to the landfill, here's where it shows up on that table 1 on the inflows. So we just did the transfer station report for Betty Davis Island Transfer Station. We said we sent 1,000 tons to Moscone. I can either accept, reject, or modify those incoming tonnages to that station, to my landfill. I'm going to leave that blank for now because I want to do something, but let's go ahead and say accept for the 12,000 tons of disaster debris. Now that record changes to accepted and has been entered into part of your report. So I said I was going to do something different. I'm going to actually edit this down. So it would say 500 tons of green material was sent to this landfill for potential beneficial reuse. However, out of that 500, only 450 was actually accepted for use as green material ADC. There were 50 tons that were basically determined to be solid waste and were rejected for green material. Instead, they were brought through the gate as solid waste. So we would modify this record to 1,050 and click Save. So that kind of describes some of the operations that, and there's maybe a little potential bit of, it's not going to necessarily match up with what actually happened to that material once it passed through the gate. That's for the landfill to basically fill in. So let's say all the facilities reported to me, there's not any other ones that I need to enter into that table 2. We can go ahead and add some direct haul solid waste here. Let's say we received 5,000 tons for disposal over the course of the quarter, and then maybe another 1,000 of disaster, and then let's say maybe another 650 green material. So now we have entered the direct haul with the inflows, both the material received from direct haul as well as the material received from transfer processors, not other transfer processors, sorry. This is a landfill. So 13,500 from transfer processors, 6,650 from direct haul, for a total of 20,150 tons accepted by the disposal facility over the quarter. So once we're not finished. We need to answer the methodology questions here. So go on to the next tab. Now, this tab, you actually don't need to enter anything. It's just kind of a FYI. It's just confirming for you that here's the reported disposal taking place for the quarter. At the facility. So confirming 12,000 tons of disaster from the transfer processor, 1,050 from the transfer processor, 5,000 from direct haul, MSW, and then 1,000 of disaster. Of course, the beneficial reuse does not appear because that's its separate tab, and that's where you would enter that information. So click beneficial reuse. Now it's telling me the inflow is 1,100 tons. we've received material from the transfer station and from direct haul for green material. So we actually need to say how on site we use that. So this is kind of screwing up a little bit, but so I'm gonna have to zoom out, but basically there's an edit button. And for each of these streams, you would need to say how on the site it was used as alternative daily cover, alternative intermediate cover, or construction or landscaping and erosion control. So let's just say it was all used for ADC. So enter 450, and then this was also used as ADC 650. So now you can see on the right-hand side, 1,100 tons. So all of the inflow tons of beneficial reuse have been assigned to a beneficial reuse type, one of those 4 categories. If there were non-green material beneficial reuse, that would appear in this table. Okay, make this bigger again and go to the next tab. Now, outflows, believe it or not, disposal facilities can also send material out. So or for instance, a landfill could have an on-site composting facility who they're taking the lead for reporting on. So in that case, the landfill would report the tons of finished compost going out of the facility. Or if there are, metals or other commodities that are basically in a load checking program picked out prior to being disposed on the working face and sent off for recycling, you could enumerate the tons of recyclable material sent off-site for the quarter in the outflows tab. It's not going to hurt us if we don't have any outflows, so we're just going to go ahead and move on because I think you've all have seen that quite a bit this afternoon. So we'll go next to the disposal origins. Oops, let me zoom in here. Okay, so 5,000 tons was reported as being accepted from direct haul. Of course, we accepted more than 5,000 tons for the quarter, but not all of that was direct haul. But we are only responsible for assigning jurisdiction of origin for the direct haul. So I just want to keep it moving. So let's just stick Anaheim with the 5,000 and click save. And that's all the waste that's been allocated. So we can move on to green material origins tab. 650 tons of green material were received from direct haul. So we need to allocate that. So let's say, Baldwin Park, 650. And then you can click save. Then we can move on to source sectors tab. So again, for the direct hauled solid waste received and disposed, where did that come from? So again, we can answer the question in terms of a percent or in terms of a tonnage. So let's just say we're not using any self-haul. You'd provide the appropriate jurisdiction of origin breakdown. And we almost forgot to submit the methodology question. So, check all that apply and click Save. Again, we're going to pass over the Documents tab because nothing's required in there as of right now. Review and Submit tab, click Review. And no flags were generated, so we can click Submit. And there you have it, the Q4 report for the disposal facility for CalRecycle, RDRS. So really, it's as easy as that. I mean, this was a very pared down example, but you can see that even reporting for disposal facilities is still fairly straightforward. There shouldn't, I guess we've kind of talked this to death a lot, so hopefully folks are kind of on the same page with me here and are hanging in. But essentially, you can see, some summary tables, and I think at a later date you will also be able to export the report. We don't have this functionality built in to the staging at this juncture, but by the time disposal facilities open up for reporting, you'll be able to download a copy of your report fairly easily. All right, so that covers what we're doing for the landfill. Are there any questions online? All right.
In the example of the 50 tons of beneficial reuse being characterized as solid waste, a jurisdiction's disposal activity was incorrectly increased. So how would a jurisdiction know this type of mischaracterization occurred, and how can it be corrected?
Oh, that's a good question. So subsequent to the end of the reporting period, there will be a week or two where CalRecycle aggregates and compiles the quarterly data, and then it's made available for jurisdictions to review. And so they would be able to see instances where that kind of thing took place, and then they could follow up with the specific solid waste facility and to receive a more additional clarification with respect to that. But in the case of when I increased the solid waste tons by 50 and lowered the green material tons, I'm still under the impression that because we ended up assigning the green material to ADC, the green material would still be counted as disposal anyway under our example because of the AB 1594 ADC statutory change that goes into, it hasn't gone into effect yet, but as of Jan 1, 2020, that material will be counted against jurisdictional disposal. So, that's kind of a nuanced little bit in terms of that question specifically, but happy to follow up with the jurisdictions, that are needing additional advice on that. And also, if jurisdictions have any questions about this kind of thing, I think a great point of contact would be to start with your LAMD representative for your jurisdiction. That's always what we recommend. But thank you for the question. Was there anything else? All right, thank you very much. We're going to continue along with our process here, and we're kind of getting into the wrap-up sort of phase. We have two more reporting entity activity types to discuss. Fortunately, they're both fairly straightforward and won't take up very much time at all. So let's go ahead and do a recycler / composter. We'll go ahead and select this focus group recycler reporting entity or organization / site. Click the quarterly reports button. Add a report for Q3 2019, you are required to report. Actually, let me give you a little bit of a demo. Let's say you didn't do 100 tons for the quarter. You could click that exemption and click save. And that's essentially, you submit. That's basically, you're kind of like submitting almost like a dummy report, indicating that you're reporting that you didn't have to report. So for the quarters for which you don't meet or exceed the de minimis tonnage threshold, or you have some other applicable exemption and you've registered here and you haven't been made permanently inactive, you're still required to fill out sort of a placeholder report, basically just saying that, look, hey, yeah, I know I have a reporting obligation. I'm not neglecting that. I'm just indicating to you that I don't have reportable activities for this quarter, so because I did not meet or exceed the de minimis tonnage threshold. So I'm just letting you know that, so that, you know, we're not suspecting that there was just a total disregard of the reporting requirements. So to the extent that a facility is already in the system, but their activities may, you know, go, you know, they may straddle the line of like, hey, sometimes we're in, sometimes we're not. For the times you're not, you would need to let us know. So that was for Q3, I believe. For Q4, let's just say there is a reporting obligation. So if you take a look here, we didn't really submit a report, but it pretty much indicates that, yeah, you submitted like a placeholder report. So for that quarter, your obligation has been satisfied. So let's go ahead and say Q4 required to report. So click save. That will generate the quarterly report. And as you can see, I'm going to zoom in here. Recycler/composter is very straightforward. There's really only one tab that you enter, and that's because recycler composters, in contrast to permitted transfer processing facilities or disposal facilities, they only need to report on what goes out of the facility, not what comes in. And so in that respect, the reporting is very simple. In this example, let's pretend we're a composting facility, not a plastic recycler. I know it says plastic recycling, but this is a better example. You'll indicate, you know, you'll answer the methodology questions in the outflow. So let's say we send material to end user, and that's it. We don't, or let's just say we have some nominal residuals that are generated, just to be more real world here, because nothing's perfect, right? Before we add the residual, let's add the end use. So we're a composter. We make compost. That's our intermediate product that we sell to end users who consume that. So material consumers would be the end user category. Let's say the extent of my business is I pick up, you know, our customers come to my composting facility, and they exclusively come to my composting facility to pick up material. So I could just report basically all the sales taking place in the county in which my facility is located. Now, yeah, so we're actually having an issue here. I don't know why, but it's not letting me send to it in-state end user, but this is a known issue. So let's just pretend like we're sending it we're sending compost to Colorado. Just humor me with this example. So in their material type, you could put compost. And then let's say 950. And then click save or press enter. And there you have it. As on the outflow details page, you can go back. Let's say we want to send some compost to Arizona. So you could say material consumer Arizona compost. And then let's say, 781.2. All right, so now we have those two records that they're going to material consumers in Colorado and Arizona for a total of 1,731.2 tons of compost sent. Let's say over the process of in generating that, we had some things that were picked out, as a result of the composting process. There were some contaminants that were sorted out from the compost and sent to a disposal facility. So we can say Moscone again. And then material type, you would actually be responsible for putting the material type, whatever you sent. So, it would probably be something along the lines of either just solid waste or, mixed recyclables or fines or, however you would describe that, you could indicate that. Let's try mixed recyclables. I don't know if it will come up, but we can try. Yeah, I don't think that's quite the category, but in any case, let's just go with that for right now. Let's say there were 5 tons. So press enter. That essentially said, here's the residual, 5 tons over the course of the quarter were sent to Moscone landfill. So the documents tab isn't required, like I said, so this is really the extent of the reporting. There's not much you can really screw up on, but in any case, there is the reviews feature. So there were no flags that were generated, so we can click the submit button and submit the report. And there you have it. Quarter 4 2019 has been successfully submitted for the recycling composting facility. Or in this case, it was a composting facility we use as an example. Let's see, it's about 4 right now, so I think what I'll want to do is cover the last reporting entity activity of the day. But before we do that, I want to see if there are any questions from that little exercise we had in the composter. Seeing none, any questions? No, nothing from online. All right, so we'll just, if you want to come up here, I'm afraid, yeah, sorry.
Yes, hello, I'm Miguel Carrillo from LA City Sanitation. So we process green waste and we give it out to LA City residents. How would we put that, just as end users and just
So I think my understanding, and I could be wrong about this, but to the best of my knowledge, it would be the county in which that sale or transfer took place. So if they came, is it the case where the residents come to the facility and get the material, or
they come to the facility and also we give it away, and we have it at we have giveaway sites.
So I think the thing to do would be to say the end user region is whatever county that's sale or transfer of the material took place. So let's say you're giving it away in Glendale, that's part of LA County, so you would say LA County. If all the material you gave away was given away in LA County, then that would be that would be the thing you would report just as an aggregate for all of that. So, yeah, no need to get real specific. It's just by the county.
Okay.
All right. Yes, sir.
In deference to the end user, do you require the billing address or the actual physical ship-to address?
Oh, neither of those. It's just the county.
Well, it's the county where it's shipped to, correct? In other words, if you're billing the customer in another state, but the use of the material is occurring in California, you want the ship to address, correct?
I would say to the extent possible, the maximum extent possible, the actual location where that material was used, as opposed to the shipping.
So by the same token, if you're shipping to a freight forwarder who is then in turn shipping out of the country, then you want to know that it's going out of the country.
Is that freight forwarder functioning as like a broker of
Yeah,
sorts?
it would be like a freight forwarder would be functioning as an agent for that company. So you would be shipping in, let's say, to the border of California, and then it would be ending up out of the country.
But the individual contracting those services, they don't determine the final destination of that material, or do they? In other words, the person who hired that person to drive it, are they telling him where to go, or?
Yes.
Oh, okay. In that case, they would report the final destination. Great, thank you. Was there another hand, or? Okay. All right. Anything else from online? All right. We're doing pretty well here, so let's keep our attention levels high for the last sort of section here and finish out strong. And if all goes well, maybe we even have a few more minutes to get out of here. So we pulled up Kathleen Bailey, who is the broker. So brokers and transporters only report when they control and determine the destination of the material over 100 tons per quarter. So that's folks, for instance, I know this is common in the biosolids world, where a wastewater treatment plant will basically hire the services or pay another company to take possession and control of that biosolids material, and then where they go with that is basically up to them at that point. The material sort of, the possession, for lack of a better word, is transferred to the broker or the transporter, and then it's up to them to determine where that goes, to land application or to disposal or to composting or wherever the case may be. So this is an instance where, maybe a transfer station is selling mixed bales of plastic or mixed paper, and a buyer is basically buying it, and then they're doing a transfer of that material to export or to another reporting entity or to end users. So the brokers and transporters were designed so that when we can still get a better picture about sort of the final destination of the material in many instances, because it's been reported to us that, from the perspective of the transfer station, well, hey, we send material to the broker, and beyond that, we don't know what happens to it. Well, this, RDRS reporting would compel the broker to then enter into RDRS and tell us the final destination of that material. And that's important, in the context of, just to suss out a little bit more in terms of the details about the commodities moving both within the state and out, in and out of the state, in light of, achieving our policy goals in recycling, and trying to track contamination. This may be helpful in taking a look at analyses with respect to the national sword, other kind of commodity flows. This may shed some light onto that. So yeah, without further ado, let's just kind of go right in. You'll click the quarterly reports button, again, left-hand navigation pane. That opens up the add report table. You click add report. Select the reporting entity activity type you're reporting for, and then the quarter, and that either you're required to report or you're not. Under outflows, see, again, this is basically functionally the same as the recycler composter reporting, because the regulatory requirements are almost identical. So, answer the questions as appropriate, for what took place during the quarter. So let's say we just purchase, material from transfer stations and then find a, overseas buyer for it or something like that. So end use, it could be for end use, or it could be recycling, composting. Let's say they actually purchased, like finished material and and then they're finding a broker for it, or finding a buyer for it. So let's say we're sending that to Australia, and it's PET flake, or maybe PET pellet. Let's say 200 tons of that material. All right. And then let's say we made a mistake. We actually do need to send it to a recycler. You can click that edit button and then just add it in there again and click save. So in terms of a recycler, let's say we purchase a bunch of mixed plastic bales and then take them to, like Malaysia or something. So you would scroll down here, indicate Malaysia, and then whenever this stops spinning, we can try to enter mixed plastic, like 3 through 7 or 1 through 7, or there's a number of different material types that you can enter. So let's just type in mixed plastic and see what comes up. Well, let's say it is like, we wanted to be specific, like 3 through 7. So yeah, there is 3 through 7. Let's say it's this one that roughly corresponds to like a bale spec, or actually let's say this one here. Yeah, and let's say the 3 through 7 bale, 600 tons to Malaysia. So hit it, press enter or click save, and then that saves that record. And let's say we also have an operation, like I said, with the biosolids. So we're taking that to land application in Kern County, biosolids. Class A. You know, at the 8,000. All right, 8,000 biosolids Class A, go back. So now let's review what we have here. We are sent 3 through 7 bales to Malaysia, 600 tons, 8,000 tons of biosolids to Kern County, in-state, and then 200 tons of PET pellet to manufacturing and packaging end user is in Australia. So this summary table kind of provides some, again, some much needed summary. And then we'll skip the documents tab, go straight to review and submit. There's not a whole lot that you can really screw up, but the system will also look at submissions you've made from quarter to quarter and from year to year to see if, so let's say in one quarter, last quarter you sent 1 ton. Now if you send 5,000 tons, it may say, whoa, are you sure? Because that represents a large increase from last year. And you could, it wouldn't stop you from submitting your report. You would just say, yes, that actually occurred. It wasn't a mistake. That's just the system trying to help you, in case you left off or put an extra 0 or something like that. It's just checking magnitude of the difference in values. So submit the report. And we were successfully able to submit the Q3 for the broker, transporter, reporting entity, activity type. And with that takes us through all 6 of the reporting entities that we will be demonstrating in RDRS, and that kind of brings us to somewhat of a close in today's presentation. So let's take a minute, since it is technically before time. I want to make sure that we don't, folks don't leave confused. So now would be a great time. Or also, I'll stick around for a few minutes after the meeting, but if there's anything you really wanted to say, publicly or something like that, we'll extend that opportunity one more time for folks. Otherwise, I'll stick around for the next few minutes and we can chat if there's something specific that you needed. But y'all have been a great audience. Oh yeah, come on down, sir.
Yes.
How you doing?
Roger Hill Jr., City of Los Angeles Sanitation Department. I was wondering if this goes into effect, let's say in 2024, and my LEA personnel comes in and say, I need to see your 3rd quarter report for 2019. Will I have the ability to log in and pull that up?
Oh, yes. All of this will be kept in perpetuity in the system, electronically. And also, like I said, you can get those downloads of the reports as PDF. So, if you can print them out and stick them in a file folder if you like. But in any case, it will be available online. Thank you for your question. Anything else? Let's check. Yes, online. Please go ahead. Thank you.
So the section on imposing penalties relieves reporting entities of liability for submitting incomplete data as long as they tell CalRecycle that they didn't receive data from a reporting entity. So how will reporting entities know whether other reporters that normally submit RDRS reports that affect them submitted a report to CalRecycle saying that they didn't meet the reporting threshold?
So good question. If I'm understanding it correctly, it's basically, it's not the case where, we're going 3 levels up. It's only basically like if the upstream reporting entity did not provide information to you, you can tell us about that, and that will absolve you of any obligation, enforcement actions that may result from the bad data. It's not the case where you're having to say, okay, well, upstream facility, did any other facilities upstream of you make data errors? You're only responsible for the people who provide you with information in telling us whether that information submitted by just the next upstream facility is correct. So if that upstream facility got material from another upstream facility who made errors or something, yes, I think those errors would cascade down, the line through the system. But it would be on that first upstream facility to report that second upstream facility did not submit reports correctly. No, I don't want to go too much out on a limb on this, because this is kind of subject to a little bit of interpretation and nuance, and I couldn't speak for the department's enforcement standpoint with respect to that specific language. But it's something that we definitely want to we can follow up with that person and discuss their needs and figure out something good for them. Was there anything else? All right. Well, I want to thank my colleague, Kat, very much for coming. She came from the Cerritos office to be with us here today. So I'm really grateful that we had our staff, managers and supervisors from the south side were able to help give us some relief for this. So, and also thank you to our AV person, Mr. Paul Wright, for all his tremendous work with this, putting this presentation together. Everything went fantastic, Paul. Thank you. It really went off without a hitch. So thanks so much again for your attention today. We're going to close the meeting a little bit early. If there's anything else, I'll stick around. And then if not, please send the questions to rdrs@calrecycle.ca.gov, and someone will get back to you shortly. Thanks very much.